Now live at 5, a former Braves player is among those killed after a nightclub's roof collapsed in the Dominican Republic.
Atlanta News First anchor Joe Gorcho is at the First Alert Breaking News desk with more on this. Joe?
Carly, Tracy, Octavio Dotel did not survive after being rescued following that roof collapse in Santo Domingo. The Dominican Republic Professional Baseball League posted about his death and expressed condolences on X. Officials in the Dominican Republic had said the 51-year-old was rescued from the debris and taken to a local hospital. According to the AP, Dotel is one of at least 58 people that died, with around 160 more injured as crews in Santo Domingo continue to clear the rubble to find potential survivors. Dotel pitched for 15 years in the majors, making a brief stop in Atlanta in 2007.